Hello and welcome to this bonus presentation for Spring 20 Release Readiness Live. I'm Danny Kitkoff and I'm here with the team from Health Cloud who are ready to share the latest new features and enhancements. Now, since we may be covering the roadmap, we will be making some forward-looking statements. So please make sure your purchasing decisions are based on the currently available functionality. So with that, why don't we do a quick round of intros and then we'll get started. So Bala, let's start with you.
Thanks, Danny. Hi, everyone. My name is Bala Subramanian. I'm part of the Health Cloud product team. Really happy to be here today and presenting some of our latest capabilities with the Spring 20 release. This is a very rapidly changing industry, the healthcare and life sciences industry, and we are innovating at a very rapid pace to deliver capabilities to all segments of this industry, payers, providers, pharma, and med device. Manish?
All right, thanks, Bala. Hi, everyone. My name is Manish Giandani. I'm part of the product management team here at the Health Cloud team here at Salesforce. And I'm really excited to be here, and I'll be talking to you about all the innovations that we're delivering as a part of the Einstein Analytics for Healthcare application. So back over to you, Danny.
All right, well, actually back over to you guys. I think we should go ahead and jump in. So we'll start with you again, Bala.
Cool. Thanks, Danny. All right, so I'm going to start off talking about some enhancements that we have done around care plans. As many of you know, care plans is a very core capability in Health Cloud. And we really listened to you, our customers, and got a lot of feedback from you on how to improve the flexibility and usability of care plans. So before jumping into the enhancements, like a quick recap, care plans, when you set up a care plan, you have a concept of a care plan template, which really contains all of the problems and the goals and the tasks that go into the care plan. And then there's also a notion of a care team that you can attach to the care plan, which actually interacts with the patient and makes sure that they are adhering to all of the things that are in the care plan. So that's just sort of a quick recap of what the capability itself is. So let's talk about how we have actually enhanced this in the Spring 20 release. So first of all, we have introduced more flexibility into the structure of the care plan template. So as you'll see in just a moment when I kind of walk through the demo, previously you had to have a very rigid sort of a structure where you had a problem, and then to solve the problem you have to specify goals, and then you had to have tasks for each of the goals. So we have loosened that structure up where you can now sort of flexibly define those problems, goals, and tasks without being dependent on each other. The other thing that we have also done is really improved the user experience for how you go about creating a care plan in the first place. So you can either create one from a template, or you can just start from scratch and create a care plan just by yourself. And then as a user, as you're sort of interacting with the care plan, we've also made it easy for you to do things like mark tasks as closed and sort of go through that whole process in a much more seamless way. So let me just jump into a demo and show you some of these new capabilities. So what you see here is a set of care plan templates that have been defined. And let me drill into a few of these to show you how these templates have become more flexible. So if I drill into this template, you will see that there is a problem that is defined as part of the template. And once I drill into the problem that this care plan is trying to address, I can also see that there is a goal, and this is typically a goal for the patient that you define in order to address that problem. And then within that goal, I can see that there are a couple of tasks. So this is the classic care plan structure that we have. Now what I'm going to show is how you can actually have a different structure. So for instance, if I drill into another of these care plans, you will notice that this one has a problem, but when I drill into the problem, I can see that I have tasks that are created for the patient, but these tasks are directly relating to that problem. So I did not have to go and actually create the goal and so on. So the benefit from a customer point of view is that you can really have that flexibility where if you don't want to go and define all of the three, the problems and the goals and the tasks, you can just choose to have a few of that as you're kind of going through this. And then lastly, if you can also look at another care plan where all I really have are tasks. So I've not defined problems or goals, I'm just using tasks to track what I'm doing in this particular care plan. So that's from the perspective of setting up your care plan templates. Now we can see how you actually go about creating a new care plan for a patient. So I'm on the patient page in Health Cloud, and I have a new care plan button. So when I go and select that, I can select a record type for the care plan. And then once I do that, now you'll see some of the changes that we have done in Spring 20. So previously, the section which under the template name and description was blank, and you had to start typing in something. Now we actually show you all the most frequently used care plan templates. So if there are ones that you use all the time, you don't have to actually go and start searching. It's right there for you, and you can pick that. The other thing you'll also see on the right pane is the templates that you have selected. So you can select up to 15 templates as you are creating a care plan for a particular patient. So I'm going to go ahead and select a couple of these templates. And you'll see the selected templates on the right. And when I click next, it also warns me that the patient that I'm assigning this care plan to is actually not a community user, which means that they won't have the visibility to the tasks. So you have to assign them as a community user, and then they can access their tasks within the community. So here I have another chance to go and refine what I want to include in the care plan. So for instance, if I change my mind and I say that maybe I don't want to include this template at all, I can just unselect that. Or I could say, I don't want to include certain specific tasks when I create the care plan, so I could select it at that leaf level as well. The other thing I could do is make an inline edit. So for example, if I don't like the way that the template has this task name, I can just change that and edit. Instead of saying, administer medications, I can just say, provide medicines, and make those kind of changes inline. I can change the date on which this care plan goes into effect. So I want to change the start date, and I can also edit the offset for these tasks. So if I want to start this task, say 5 days after the care plan goes into effect, I can specify all of that. So once I've done that, I advance to the next stage. And here, I would need to provide a subject for the care plan. So I can say this is the care plan for post-procedure recovery and nutrition. I would also need to assign the care plan to a user. I'm just going to pick a user here. And again, I can review everything that I selected in this bottom section here and then save that care plan. So this is another change that we made is once you save the care plan, it automatically opens up that care plan for you in the case page. So previously, before this enhancement, it would take you back to the all care plans page, and you would have to come back to this one. But here we have directly opened up that page for you. And here what I can see is all of the different tasks and the goals, and all of that are now part of my care plan. One of the requests that we got from a lot of customers is to really make it easy to mark tasks as complete. So now we have provided that as well, where in a particular task, I can just go and select that task, and it would essentially close out that task. So in case I have actually made a mistake and I need to sort of go back and open that task again, I can still do that and select that again and say that I want to put that task back into an in-progress state, and then save that, and then I can see that it's back in my list of tasks. So it just makes it easy to close tasks within a care plan. Now, if I go back to my all care plans page, I see that the new care plan now appears. You'll also see that previously you had to refresh this page using the refresh tab option, but now as soon as you navigate to the all care plans, the new one that you created shows right there. And then the last thing I wanted to show with respect to care plans is the fact that you can also start with a blank slate. So there is a start a blank care plan option. And once you select that, it takes you directly to the page where you can create your care plan, which would basically be an empty shell. And then you can go back into it and add your problems, goals, and tasks. So let me now go back to my presentation. And we'll go to the next topic. So that was essentially a quick review of what we do on the care plans in terms of improved flexibility and usability. The next topic I wanted to talk about are enhancements that we have done to the provider relationship management capabilities. So just a quick recap, in our Winter 20 release, we introduced provider visualization, which is essentially relationship cards that you can add into an account or a contact page, which gives you a lot of information about the provider, such as their affiliations, education, accreditation, specialties, subspecialties, operating hours, and a lot of information. And really the benefit of using relationship card is that instead of seeing all of that as related lists on an account page, which means you'd have to scroll a lot to kind of get to all the information, it's a much more compact way of visualizing all of that for contacts and for accounts. So that's just a recap of what we delivered in Winter 20. And also in Winter 20, we had the provider search capability, where you can do a search on top of the provider data model. You can search by location. Again, you can search by network status. Is the provider in network or out of network? By specialties, subspecialties, and so forth. Visualize the search results in the form of a list as well as on a map. And really also expose this capability directly to your end patients and members through a community portal. So that's just a quick recap of what was delivered in the Winter 20 release. So talking through the new capabilities in Spring 20, let me talk about provider search first. So what we have done in Spring 20 is really enhance the administrator's experience for how they can configure and really tailor this provider search specifically for your use cases and for your end users. So to that, couple of things. We have provided custom fields in provider search. So you can define custom fields in the healthcare provider entity, as well as healthcare practitioner facility entity, which are two very core entities to the provider data model, and then include those custom fields in provider search. The other thing you can also do is configure the provider search component to do things like show and hide different fields, rearrange the fields in the search panel. You can change the label of the fields and so forth. So really providing that flexibility and configurability so that you can tailor it exactly to what you're looking for in terms of your end user needs. And in the provider visualization, the relationship cards, what we have introduced is an ability to define your own card configurations. So in Winter 20, there were 4 out-of-the-box cards that you could use on your account or contact page, but now you can completely define your own card type. You can say on which object that card is going to live, what is that card actually going to show, what are the different fields that you want to show on the card, and you can relabel the fields. So extensive configurability of this feature that we first introduced in the Winter 20 release. So now I'm going to again do a quick demo of that. So let's start with provider search. So in provider search, as I mentioned, in the Winter 20 release, you could do a search. So for instance, I could select a few specialties. I can select an address, and I can also say in what radius I want to search. And then once I do a search, I see all of my search results listed here. I can also see them on a map. So this is what we introduced in our Winter 20 release. So what I'm going to show you now is, let's say that you as a customer, you want to create a custom field called cost tier. So you want to know whether these providers that are shown in the results, are they like high cost or medium cost or low cost? So you want to add that as a field in the search panel. And let's also say that you don't like the way this is laid out. So you want to take that accepting new patients and move it on the top. And you want to take that facility name and move it, say, below the provider name, just as an example. So we'll show you how you can do those kind of configurations. So first, for the custom field, what you need to do is you need to define the custom field in the first place. And that is just standard, Salesforce way of doing it. So for instance, you can go to healthcare practitioner facility, which is the table in which I've defined the custom field. So I drill into that object, and I can see I've already defined, for the purpose of this demo, a custom field called cost tier. Now, one of the things you'll need to do is, in provider search, we take all of the data in the provider data model and we denormalize it into another entity called care provider searchable field. So you would need to go in and define the cost tier in that entity as well. So that's just a setup step that you would need to do. It's a one-time step just to define the custom fields in both those places. So once you're done that, you can go back to your setup homepage and type in care provider, and you see this new setup entity called care provider search config that has been added in. So if I click on that, I see that I've defined a new mapping. So what this mapping does is it just says that I'm going to take the custom field called cost tier in healthcare practitioner facility. And by the way, you can define in either of these two entities. And I'm mapping that to a target field, again, which is in the care provider searchable fields entity. So that just sets up the connections between those custom fields so that you can then use that in your provider search. So now let's switch back to the provider search screen. So once I've defined that custom field, I've created the mapping, I want to now go back and add it into my search experience. So I would go in here and say, edit page. And this is going to open up the search page in my Lightning App Builder. And once I click on the component, here you see that we have added a new configuration component on the right. So you see all the fields in your search panels. You also see all the fields in your results section. So what I'll do first is I'll rearrange a couple of these fields. So I'll take the facility, the accepting new patients, and move it back up above facility name. And then I'm going to add a field, which is the cost tier. And while I'm here, I'm also going to say that I want to add the cost tier as something that is shown in the search results when I do the search and I look at my search results. So I'll go ahead and add that. You can also see that I can either choose to display the label or not in the results. So if I don't display the label, it's just going to show me the value of the cost tier. It's not going to say that it actually is the cost tier. So I choose to display the label now. So once I've done all those changes, I can save that out and go back. And now you'll see that accepting new patients is moved up to the top, facility name is below provider name, and I have the cost tier as well. And so I'll just repeat the search that I did before, select a few of those. And select a radius. And I search, and you'll see that in the search results, I can see the cost tier. So there's some of them are high, others are medium, and so forth. If I wanted to just search by a certain cost tier, say I just want to look at medium cost, I can refine my search, and now it only shows me the ones that are medium cost. So that was just a quick example of the provider search enhancements in terms of the additional configuration and the ability to add custom fields into provider search. Now what we will do is look at provider visualization cards. So I am in an account page, and I've added a visualization card which shows me information about the contacts at that account. So I can see there are 2 contacts, and I have a lot of information about those contacts listed. So what I'm going to show is how we actually did this kind of configuration. So how were we able to create this, the content in these cards, and how did we attach these cards into this page? So the first thing is, again, if you go to edit page on this page, it opens again that page in the Lightning App Builder. And if I click on Provider Information tab and on this component, I see that there are different card types that I can attach to this page. So in this example, I've selected a card type called Provider Details, and that is the one that I had previously defined with all the definition of what are the objects, what are the fields, and so forth. So that's just how you actually attach a card to a page. Let's go back here. And now what I will show you is how can you actually define what is in that card. So we go back to our setup screen. And if you type in relationship card, you'll see there's something called relationship card type manager. So this is the place where, as an admin, you can go and define different types of cards. So here for the provider details card type, let's go and look at what's in that card. So in the relationship card, I can provide a name for the card, which is provider details. I can also select what is the page that the card will appear on. So in this case, the card is on the account page. Then I say what exactly is shown on the card and how does that relate to the account. So what I'm going to show is the contact, which relates directly to the account. And then I specify the fact that the object is the contact and it's related to the account through the account ID. So once I do that, I can then select fields. So this is the page where, if you remember, we showed those set of fields on the card. This is where I can select what those fields are. So I can either select fields directly from the contact object, or I can select fields from a parent or a child object related to the contact, or from objects that are 2 or 3 levels removed from the contact as well. So it's really flexible in terms of how you can navigate through this entire structure of how these accounts and contacts are related to the different entities in the Health Cloud data model, and then pick and choose fields from that to add into your card. So what we'll do now is just select a few fields. So I'm going to select fields from a parent or child object related to the contact. So let's say that we wanted to pick specialties and add that to the card. So I would pick healthcare provider specialty. I would say that it relates to the contact through the practitioner ID, and then I can pick the field that I want to add in, which is the specialty name. So once I pick that, I can then add that field to the card. Now let's say that I also wanted to pick the cost tier field, the custom field that we defined, which is on healthcare practitioner facility. And then again, I would pick the practitioner facility and then go back, select the cost tier, and then add that field to the card. So as I'm adding these fields, notice that it keeps adding to the list on the right panel here. And the last thing I want to do is a more complex case where, let's say that the field I'm selecting is actually 2 levels removed from the contact object. So I could go in here and say that I first want to look at healthcare practitioner facility, link that to the contact through the practitioner ID, and then select a second object, which is healthcare facility network, and link that again through the practitioner facility ID, and that gives me the facility network name, which I add to the card. So that's just a more complex use case where you had to kind of do the 2-level navigation through the Health Cloud model to get to the field that you wanted, and then you add that into the card. So once I'm done with that, I can save my changes. And you can, again, always go back in, look at the edit card fields and make sure that all of the fields are arranged the way that you like them to be. So here I have specialty name, cost tier, and facility network name. And now I'm going to go back to my account page, and let's refresh this. And you will see that now on my provider cards, I can see the specialties for each of the providers, I can see the cost tier, and I can also see the facility network name. So that was just a quick run through of how you can use these cards, define your own card types, add your own fields into the card, and really sort of navigate through the Health Cloud data model relationships to arrive at that. So going back to the presentation, the last thing that I will cover before handing it to Manish is enhancements that we have made in Spring 20 for sales agreements and account-based forecasting. So previously we had custom metrics in sales agreements that is now available with account forecasting as well. We've also added bulk editing capabilities in both agreements and forecasting, which means that you're able to perform an edit action across multiple cells instead of going one cell at a time and changing the forecast for a particular month or a period. Multi-currency support is added. So for instance, if you have orders in one currency, opportunities in a different currency, but you want to roll them up into a common account currency and look at it in account forecasting, you can do that. And then lastly, a lot of you had asked that, if I'm creating agreements or forecasts with a lot of products, I want to be able to just filter that down and just look at particular products so that it fits in my screen form factor and I can work with that more easily. So with that, I'm going to hand it to Manish, who will walk you through our enhancements in Einstein Analytics.
All right, thanks, Bala. A lot of cool new features from the Health Cloud perspective. So I'm just going to quickly walk you through some of the new innovations that we've added in the Einstein Analytics for Healthcare application. But before we do that, I just want to quickly do a recap of the application. So just to define it, what we delivered as a part of the Winter 20 release was an application, a net new application, which is an add-on called Einstein Analytics for Healthcare. It has pre-built content, reports, dashboards, both on the descriptive side and containing predictive analytics based on industry standards. And we rolled this application out. And in the true spirit of Health Cloud, it addresses needs of payers, providers, and med device companies. And it's tightly coupled to Health Cloud as well. So this is the new application that we had launched in the Winter 20 release. So let's look at some of the key areas that we addressed in that release. So if you're a payer, we added a lot of content around utilization analytics to give you visibility and insights into your pre-auth process. We also added details around care plans or care performance. So if you want to gain insights into any of your patients or members who are falling behind in the care plan adherence, you could leverage that capability. For providers, we added a lot of content around referral analytics. So if you want to gain visibility into your sources of referrals, conversion rates, who are your top providers in terms of referral counts, you could gain visibility to that. We also added manufacturing analytics for medical device companies. So if you are an account rep at a med device company, you can gain visibility into your account health, identify opportunities of upsell, and essentially grow your revenues. So what we had done with the Spring 20 release now is we added two new capabilities. One is around patient member segmentation. So for both payers and providers, if you want to segment your patient, segment them by conditions or demographic information, you can do that very quickly and easily. And then, for example, if you want to look at high-risk patients with diabetes and you want to put them on a care plan, for example, you can do that. We also added new capabilities around social determinant analysis. So if you want to gain insights into your members or patients who are getting impacted by social determinants and, for example, update their care plans, you can do that by using that dashboard. So let's dig a little deeper. So as you mentioned, with patient segmentation, what we are doing is giving both payers and providers ability to segment their member population. So they can do it based on, for example, risk band. They can segment their member by population, by location, by number of conditions. So they have all these different dimensions that they can segment their members by, and the eventual goal would be to understand if there are high-risk patients who are impacted by certain conditions, and if you can take preventative action, for example, putting them on a marketing journey or putting them on a care plan, you can do that with that context in mind. And we'll also look at a demo to give insights into some of these details. Social determinant analysis, again, gives you visibility into the various social determinants of health and the various care determinants that actually are impacting your user population. So, for example, if you want to highlight or understand how many members are impacted by social isolation, you can drill down into them, understand, what's the split in terms of age or gender, the different kind of insurance they're carrying, and then also understand if any interventions have been defined for them, what stages they are in. So you can use this dashboard to segment that member population. And again, the goal would be that you can either put this member population on a care plan, different care plans, or do an outreach, put them on marketing journeys. So that flexibility is there as well. We also actually launched a new experience for care coordinators. This dashboard gives care coordinators at-glance view into their member population that they are managing, so they can very quickly gain insights into high-risk members who are falling behind, members whose care plan tasks are due to be soon. Again, the goal is for them to quickly gain insights into this member population, take preventative actions, put them on care plans, or put them on journeys, so that they can avoid situations in which they are falling behind and they're falling behind in terms of their care plans, and the goal would be to reduce any readmissions, for example. So this is a new experience that we've built for care coordinators. We also have a lot of intelligence in the application. So we started off by building a new intelligence story around care plan adherence. So if you're a care coordinator, we have a new experience for you where now if you are in a patient record, you can also look at what's the likelihood of a patient falling behind on the care plan task. And this is again based on Einstein discovery. So if the probability or the likelihood of a patient is high to fall behind on the care plan task, you can call them up or follow up with them, understand what's going on, and set up the right set of interventions for them as well. So this is a key capability that we are delivering. And the second capability that we are delivering on the intelligence side is again an Einstein discovery story where for a payer we are predicting the likelihood of a pre-auth request to get denied. So we know that payers get a lot of these requests on a weekly, monthly basis. So the ability to identify any pre-auth requests that are going to be at risk of getting denied enables them to intervene quickly to ensure that they are staying on top of any SLAs or agreements that they defined with the provider organization. So this is again a key capability that lets them prioritize their work as well. So with that, let's look at a demo of what we've built in the Spring 20 release. So I'm going to start off by looking at the patient segmentation dashboard. So over here, what I'm looking at is a very easy way for me to gain insights into my member population or patient population. I can do a segmentation by risk, by different age groups, different conditions, how many conditions, and enrollment type. So for example, if I want to look at my high-risk patients, so I can quickly drill into that and understand what's the split of that member population, how many conditions they have, and what are the different age groups. I can also look into details for that segment of the population, so I can see over here different patients and their segmentation by the risk band. I can also see that the average risk actually has gone down. What I can also do actually is look at the average number of activities. These are activities that are depicting the engagement we have with our patients. So for example, I can see that for low-risk patients, there is a high number of activities. So that clearly is a red flag, because typically I would expect that we are spending more time with our high-risk patients because those are the ones that need attention. So going down a little bit further, we also have the ability, for example, to look at patients with different conditions, where they're located. So if for example, if I want to drill down into patients in Alaska, I can do that. If I want to look at only patients who have diabetes, in this case, there's just one patient. I can also look at relevant information about, what conditions they have, what's their risk score, if they have any care plans, tasks that are overdue, any social determinants that are impacting them. So this is a very easy, quick way for me to quickly segment my member population. The second dashboard that I want to talk about today is the social determinant analysis dashboard. And again, over here, I can get a very quick overview or insight into the different social determinants that are impacting my member population. So over here, I can see that I have more than 8,000 patients under my care. There are about 2,000 patients who are getting impacted by social determinants. I can look at what are the different social determinants that are impacting my population. how many different barriers are defined under those. So for example, if I want to look at only barriers that are basically are social oriented, I can drill into that. Then if I want to segment further them by age or by gender, by location, I can quickly segment that member population. And then I can also gain a quick insight into all the different barriers that I've defined and the interventions that have been defined. So in this case, for example, if I just want to look at patients that have high priority barriers and high priority tasks, I can quickly segment that member population. I can get a list of patients, get a quick insight into different barriers that have been defined for them, and again, take these patients into Health Cloud, put them on a care plan or put them on a marketing journey. So I can do all those actions as well. Then the other segment that I want to talk about is the intelligence story that we have done. So over here, I'm starting off as a care coordinator, and I can see what's my care plan adherence. And this is the dashboard that we have delivered in the Winter 20 release. So over here, I can open up my care plan adherence dashboard. I can see how many patients have tasks that are past overdue. I can look at them just want to look at high risk patients. I can see Charles Green is one of the patients that is falling behind. And due to our tight integration with Health Cloud, I can directly open Charles' record within this environment. And then what I can do as well is I can now open Charles' record. So in this case, I'm looking at Charles. I can look at all the clinical information about Charles. I can also actually look at all the care plan tasks that are actually overdue for Charles. So for example, over here, there are 19 care plans that have been defined for Charles. How many problems have been defined, tasks that have been defined, and what are the priority of the tasks as well. So this gives me a quick insight into the care plans for Charles within the context of Charles' patient record itself. And then based on his past history, I can also get intelligence about Charles, right? So in this case, Einstein Discovery is predicting that there's a 63% chance that Charles will fall behind on his care plan tasks. I can also gain insights into what are the causes because of which Charles will fall behind. And then also I get recommendations as a care coordinator as to what I can do or what actions I can take to improve his care plan adherence. So that's, I think, a key capability that we are delivering, a key innovation that we're delivering with the Spring 20 release that from intelligence perspective as well. So that wraps up all that we are delivering for Einstein Analytics for Healthcare in the Spring 20 release. And with that, hand it over back to you, Danny.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for that. It sounds like a lot of great things are coming to Health Cloud, especially, Bali, when you were talking about the task, the search feature. It seems like it's going to make the user and experience just be a lot more efficient and faster to be able to put that in there than the Einstein Analytics in Health Cloud. So thank you guys so much for that demo. So be sure to check out our other on-demand sessions in the community, and we will see you back here for Summer 20.